If you're feeling drained in your relationship and you don't know why, today's topic might be just what you need. We're going to look at how the little things can eat away at our sanity, especially if you're married to someone that is emotionally destructive and has entitlement issues, and the sheer number of entitlement requests just wears you out. It can be really confusing to pinpoint this, especially if you have been raised to believe that you need to say yes every time someone asks something of you, or you need to be the one to clean up the mess that someone else leaves behind, or else maybe you're not being a good wife or a good mom. For the best advice on how to recover from emotional abuse, betrayal, and divorce, please hit like and subscribe so you can be notified every time I post a new video. Also, be sure to check out my coaching link in the description. I'm Coach Ketra, and I help women find empowerment during some of life's most challenging times. I have survived emotional abuse, betrayal, and a divorce after a 17-year marriage. So let's do this together. What happens when your spouse is continually starting something, but then dumping the remainder of the project or even tiny little thing around the house on you to finish? Or what about when they just seem to be purposely sloppy and leaving things for you to pick up and not worrying about it themselves at all? Let me tell you a little story to demonstrate what I'm talking about today. Okay, so a long time ago, I had a toddler at the time, and my husband at the time had started unpacking a suitcase that we both had items in after a trip. And he started dumping everything on the ground. And I said, hey, you know, if you dump everything on the ground right now, like, our child is gonna get in there and make a mess of things. And I was right in the middle of getting ready for work, so I had no time to stop. But his response was something like, well, get your stuff then. He was content to just leave it on the ground. And what happened when I quickly tried to pick up a few things that were mine and get them up off the ground so I could finish getting ready for work is I missed some of my things. My toddler, consequently, went in and ripped them up and destroyed some of my things. And you might think this is just a normal situation, but the problem is my spouse had decided that he was going to take it upon himself to do something that affected me and my belongings. I didn't have the margin in my schedule to stop and clean up my things. I didn't have the time to do it, but he gave me no choice. I warned him that this might happen. It did happen, and he did not take the responsibility needed to put my things either back in the suitcase and say, okay, I'm just gonna take care of my stuff and I'll let you get to that when you can. He just left them because he did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it, with no regard to my feelings or my time frame. He didn't communicate it, and he didn't take responsibility for my things. I hadn't left them out on the floor to be destroyed. I had left them safely in the suitcase until I could get to them. So this is a tiny little example. And the fact is, these things do happen in a regular marriage. But when they happen over and over, that becomes a problem. Now my day ends up being filled with these tiny little moments that interrupt my schedule so that I am forced to stop and deal with them when I hadn't planned on it. It's a total disrespect for my time, my schedule, and my feelings, and my property. The sheer number of times that this kind of behavior happens in the course of one single day when you are married to someone who is entitled is an astronomical number. Like, it is so huge. It goes on so much, and you can't understand why you are so incredibly exhausted. So you go about picking up the slack for the person that just keeps dumping things on your plate. They take off their clothes in the bathroom and throw them in the middle of the floor. They don't pick up after themselves. They don't put their plates in the sink. They just leave things around expecting someone else to do it. It is absolute entitlement at best, and it is neglectful of your relationship or your feelings at worst. It creates a dynamic where they are no longer reaping what they sow. You are reaping what they sow, and what they're sowing isn't pretty. It doesn't build up your marriage, and it does not work in a mutual, respectful relationship. We end up absolutely over-functioning on every level, being hyper aware and hyper alert for everything that's going on, because we know no one else is doing it. No one else is watching out. No one else is going to pick up the slack. And so in order to try to grasp some level of sanity in our life and in our home, we become hypervigilant, and it is exhausting. So what do we do to stop it? We must stop saying yes. And the honest truth is, we're rarely ever asked if we want to pick up the slack in these areas. We're just dumped on. So it's not even a matter of us saying yes or no. It's a matter of us stopping the enablement of picking up after that person and not implementing consequences for their behavior. This is where we have to implement boundaries. We have to let the chips fall where they may. If that person dumps something on you without your permission, that is not your job. This is not a 4-year-old. I don't have to pick up the slack for my fully functioning adult husband. On occasion, we do that for each other in marriage, but not on a daily basis without communicating and without getting the other person's perspective first. We don't need to be the martyr in our marriage so that we can feel like we're being the good and kind wife, while our spouse delegates out everything on the planet so they can have a carefree light load. We have to realize that everyone's behavior affects the people around them in their life. As women, we are usually hyper aware of this. Oftentimes though, if we're in a marriage like this, our spouse has no idea, doesn't care to know. Even if they do know, they just don't care. This is where it's important that we are able to get our strength back so that we even have the power and agency to say no. When we're depleted, we do not have the energy to stand up to our spouse and say no if it means we're going to get worn down even more in some kind of verbal battle. That's why I created Audacity. It's my 8-week program that takes women from being totally depleted to being the boundary badasses that they need to be in order to have clarity and strength and make decisions from a place of empowerment instead of exhaustion. If you are interested in finally getting some clarity, check out in my description the link to schedule a one-on-one phone call with me. I offer a one-time one-on-one phone call so that you can get some clarity. And if you're a great fit for the program, great. But if you're not, you're going to get away from that phone call with a lot more clarity than you have today. So please take your life back into your own hands and do something to get your power back. Also, be sure to hit like and subscribe and comment below to let me know what you're struggling with right now so that I can address it in future videos. Until next time, create a life by your own design.